Hey everyone, and welcome to the video. And today what we're discussing is everything to do with my Sony A7S III. So I have a few updates, S-Cinetone update, software version 2.0. So let's jump straight in. So firstly, I have done the version 2 software update for the A7S III. It didn't work on Big Sur, that's still not supported, so I did do it through my PC. The process was relatively simple, but there were a couple of things that did throw up a slight snag, so I thought I'll basically make a quick video and just advise you of where I had stumbling blocks, and hopefully that way some of you guys won't. So the first issue that I had was my PC that I used has a sort of memory card reading adapter, if you like. It's an addition that was added in when I first built the PC. When I connected the camera using the USB ports on that particular adapter, it wasn't recognized, so it just didn't register that it had anything connected to it. So that's the first thing. Obviously, if you are looking to do any sort of firmware updates, because you never want to have anything crash halfway through, my recommendation would be to obviously use the included USB-C cable that comes with whatever camera you've got. In my case, it's obviously a USB-C to USB-A, and connect it into an original USB port on your computer. That way you know you won't have any dropouts and you won't have any issues. So first thing was obviously the USB port. Second thing is, for anybody out there that does very similar to me, where you use the mobile app, I tend to forget that I've left the control with smartphone enabled, and I just leave it in that mode. You have to actually disable that in order to get it to recognize the USB mass storage, which is what it comes set to by default for whenever you plug in your USB-C cable. So obviously if you're having issues with it registering or just recognizing with your PC, then basically turn off control with smartphone, and that will then give you the option to basically go back to the correct method for USB-C connection. Okay, so that aside, the rest of the process went pretty smooth. So I literally downloaded the software straight from the Sony website. I believe you do have to put in the model number just to make sure that you're getting the correct firmware, and then it downloads it. When it comes up, it gives you the current version, which for mine, I believe it was 1.0.2, and then it gives you the version that is upgrading to. So in my case, it was version 2.0. That's pretty much it. You hit next, you follow the prompts on screen. The screen on the Sony didn't actually do much, so the only time mine actually did anything was once the process had completely finished and it actually came all the way back, and it gives you the Imaging Edge sort of logo, the splash screen, which you can get rid of, but I decided to just leave it there, so then whenever I'm doing these firmware updates I know that it's definitely finished. As I say, process was pretty straightforward, no hiccups, no problems, so 2 thumbs up for Sony in terms of all of their software so far. In my experience, everything that I've used with Sony on both the Mac, the iPhone, as well as the PC side has all worked perfectly fine for me. So that's all good. Now, in terms of the update itself, S-Cinetone, as most have said, is sort of a profile that straight out of camera basically you can just upload and be happy with. There's very little grading that needs to be done. If you want to obviously grade it, you can, but obviously it's not. The idea is the roll-offs for everything is a lot smoother, so basically it gives you a lot more cinematic and a lot more pleasing sort of image, especially when it comes to skin tones and things like that. This whole video is being filmed in S-Cinetone. I'm using picture profile 11, and basically you can let me know down in the comments below what you think of it. With regard to this video, it is being filmed at just before 5. I believe sunset is something around about an hour's time, and I have no additional lighting apart from the bokeh effect in the background. So this is basically using my Sigma f1.4, so I am cheating a little because most people aren't going to be using f1.4 lenses, but the reason I'm using that is because I wanted to come on to the next part of my video, which was the Sigma 24 to 70 f2.8 lens. So I've been playing about with this for roughly around a week now, and I have to say, basically for video, obviously for this kind of talking head scenario, this is still my preferred lens, simply because it's going to let in so much more light. Before filming this, I had thought about actually leaving this on, because I've basically, since I've got this, I've pretty much left this on the camera because I've been doing so much testing, and because in most scenarios the lighting has been pretty good, so I've not really needed to switch back. With it being so close to sunset and this room not getting a particularly brilliant amount of light, natural light coming in, I thought I'd switch back just to make the video a bit easier to film. But in terms of the lens itself, I am very, very pleased with this purchase. I will do a full review on the actual lens itself, as well as a sort of short video in terms of, or short passage in that video in terms of why I've actually purchased it, especially for photography side of things. So even though video is my main thing when it comes to cameras, digital cameras, or even the iPhones, I do still take a lot of photos, and especially when it comes to birthdays and things like that. When you want to capture something, especially people, that's where you need the focal length of somewhere between, say, a 50 and an 85, as I mentioned in the unboxing videos. It just makes a much more pleasing image in terms of what your eye naturally sees, and it actually got me thinking that most people, if you've seen all my videos up to this point, you've probably not actually seen what I really look like, because obviously this is quite a wide lens. This is a 24mm, I believe, and in order to see somebody correctly, ideally you want to be using something like a 70. In that video I'll give you a little demonstration in terms of what the differences are. So that's the update on the Sigma. Yeah, I'm very, very pleased with this particular lens. I did order an ND filter for this because the use case for this particular lens will probably be more outdoors as well. And what I did find was just some testing that I did yesterday. As soon as I went outdoors, I was basically almost unable to use the lens. Even though this is an f2.8, the amount of natural light that it brings in everything was just getting blown out. I was literally just playing about testing in my car, and even then I couldn't actually get it to stop it from blowing out everything from the windscreen and the windows. So for that reason, I have ordered just a cheap K&F ND filter, and I will be doing a separate video on that and just giving my thoughts. At the moment, obviously it's too late, so I've not been able to test that with any type of direct sunlight or anything like that, or just normal conditions basically. Today has been quite overcast, so we've not really had brilliant sunshine. So what I will do is I'll do a bit more testing on that and bring that video. Okay, so whilst editing the video, I realised that I completely missed out all the section about the batteries. So I did want to talk on the third-party batteries that I actually had installed in my A7S III. So for some reason, even though I've updated to the latest firmware that's available, my third-party batteries are still working perfectly, so I don't get any splash screen message when I first turn it on. There's no difference in terms of the battery percentage, anything like that. So for some reason, my A7S III just seems to work with third-party batteries, the ones that I actually did a video on, and I will link in the description below, as well as a card in the top right. Those batteries there working perfectly, so that's basically a result for me. I know some of the A7 IIIs, as well as some of the other models, can't actually get it working with third-party batteries. It will give you a splash screen error message saying you're using a non-supported battery, and because of that they end up basically, obviously the cameras still work. It doesn't actually stop the functionality in terms of usability of the camera itself, but what it does do is it doesn't give you the battery percentage that I currently have. So I right now know my battery's on exactly 52%. That basically disappears for people that have had the A7 III, I believe, as well as some other models. So A7R, I believe, is also affected as well as I have actually heard from other people who own A7S IIIs, and they've also said a similar thing, where basically their batteries weren't working, but thankfully with mine, I've had no issues. So yeah, that's basically a bonus, and obviously right now I'm on the latest firmware. One other quick thing to note is basically because I switched out the camera lens basically last minute. I had everything set up to shoot with the Sigma 24-70, but then last minute I kind of decided, no, I'll switch it up and I'll put this Sigma 24 1.4 lens on. I actually didn't check, and this actually occurred to me later when I was watching the footage back, and it didn't look quite as blurry in the background as what I was expecting. And the reason for that was basically because the Sigma 24-70 could only drop down to 2.8, or is just a fixed 2.8. the camera defaulted on 2.8 when I actually put this lens back on, and because I was trying to get the video filmed before I completely lost all the light, I didn't actually think to change it, even though I had it right there in front of me on my phone screen. For some reason it just didn't click for me to check that. So yeah, that video possibly could have actually been a lot brighter, and the background blur could have been a lot more. My son's actually using the room downstairs at the moment. He's gaming, so that's why basically I'm just filming this using the built-in microphones on the camera, handheld. So this once again gives you a little bit of a different impression in terms of the picture profile, as well as this being under, these are LED bulbs, but it's on the camera it's actually come up as white point set to 3000 Kelvin. I do have it slightly warmer in this particular room, but I don't think it's quite that warm. But obviously it's what the cameras decide to go with. So 3000 Kelvin is the white point that the camera's actually chosen for this particular clip. So this is picture profile 11, S-Cinetone, and this is under what's sort of mimicking incandescent light. It is a LifeX bulb, so I can literally change this to whatever I want, but basically because this room generally we don't want that white light at night, so for that reason basically I tend to keep it a bit warmer, keep it a bit more yellowy. So yeah, anyway, back to the video. Coming back to the update and the S-Cinetone, I have actually been playing about quite a lot with all the various modes, and HLG for me, because of how I got into the HDR side of things with the iPhone, and the fact that the base sort of HDR format, if you like, from the iPhone is HLG, so it's based on HLG, and then Dolby Vision is sort of added on top as the finishing touch, if you like. With the dynamic metadata as opposed to being static. For me personally, I think in terms of these sort of YouTube videos, especially for dynamic range, the HLG would be better. Now obviously this particular mode, I believe it's 2 stops less worth of coverage in terms of dynamic range for the S-Cinetone, which it seems obviously a lot, but in real terms, because of the sort of characteristics of this particular picture profile, I believe most people will find that it's not too much of an issue. It's probably only in low light and things like that where you're probably not going to want to use this if you're trying to pull out more information. And other than S-Cinetone and HLG, most of the people's go-to is generally the S-Log profiles, which I have had a little play about with, but obviously they need a bit more tweaking in post. It gives you more flexibility, but once again, S-Log 3 I believe isn't really suited to low light either. For that you're probably better off with either the standard profile or the HLG profile. I have found the standard profile to be quite good, so I do actually like the colors and everything that come out of the standard profile. I think with the S-Cinetone it's just a little bit more muted, and it gives it a bit more of a sort of filmic look straight out of the camera in S-Cinetone compared to using the standard profile or HLG or something like that. HLG is probably going to end up being a lot more vivid, even if you leave everything on standard. So yeah, that's basically where we're at with the A7S III. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate if you give this a thumbs up as well. That way more people will be able to actually see it. If you haven't already done so, also hit that notification bell. That way you will get notified whenever a new video is uploaded and you won't miss out on anything. And other than that, thanks very much for watching.